The financial markets in Europe plunged to a 16-month low today, echoing trillions of dollars worth of losses across Asia. It comes as Donald Trump said investors would have to take their medicine as he doubled down on imposing wide-ranging tariffs. For more on the market reactions, I'm joined from Singapore by Derek Wallbank, Senior Editor for U.S. Economics and Government at Bloomberg. Derek, welcome to the program. Now, we saw massive losses across Asia and Europe. The markets are all going in that one direction. What is it about Trump's Liberation Day tariffs that has, sparked such a panicked reaction among investors?
Well, thank you so much for having me. Look, Donald Trump's tariffs, as they were rolled out, went a little bit further than markets were thinking that they were going to do. And you're seeing a reaction that wasn't necessarily priced in there. Now, Trump had pledged reciprocal tariffs for a very long time. And if you go back and look at Donald Trump for years on end, he has been a very long believer that tariffs are a good thing, that they bring in revenue, and that they are, a way to go. I've covered him for a very long time. And I remember when he put on his first tariffs at the very start of the U.S.-China trade war in 2018. So this is not something that Donald Trump is new to. The scale of this, though, is a different level from what he pursued in his first term. You're talking about a 10% tariff on almost every U.S. trading partner, and then higher tariffs beyond on quite a few countries, including much of the U.S.'s top trading destinations.
Yes, and do you think this reaction from the market is more broadly tied to Donald Trump's other policies as he, gets through his 4 years in the White House?
Well, I think you have to break out the reaction and then the 4 years part. The reaction is certainly something that started after the Wednesday announcement and is going into the April 9th take effect date. You are seeing it be quite pronounced in a lot of the locations that are going to get hit with particularly high tariffs. Certainly, Taiwan had one of its worst days that it's had. Hong Kong, China had particularly bad days. Parts of Europe that were facing 20% tariffs. But look, in Australia as well, it was red, and that's at 10%. Singapore was red, that was at 10% as well. So you are seeing a bit of a sell-off across the board. Now, one of the things I think with the 4 years point that is very well made is that Donald Trump is very early into his second term. He has a very long time to run when he's president, and he has universal Republican control of Washington. So if he is going to be to be brought back in any political way and taken off of this course, it's going to be by some combination of either him doing it or Republicans deciding that they want to have a different move and trying to force his hand. There's no sign of the latter yet. One thing I am watching for is whether or not this is the precursor to negotiations, which we've seen from Trump before. There's a little bit of conflicting information from his advisors as to how much he's open to negotiations. But Trump himself has said if people came to him with a phenomenal deal, that he would be open to talking. And today in Washington, we have one example of one potential negotiation where Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, has flown to Washington for talks with Trump directly about the 17% tariffs that Israel is facing.
Yes, do you think the rest of the world might follow what Prime Minister Netanyahu is hoping to achieve in Washington in terms of perhaps either dealing with the Trump administration in a more multilateral way by way of the European Union, or perhaps where you are from a grouping of ASEAN nations? Do you see that happening more than a more unilateral approach?
Well, Israel's an interesting case, right? Because they tried to get away from the reciprocal tariffs in advance by pulling off trade barriers with the United States the week that Trump announced his reciprocal levies, except that Trump's reciprocal levies weren't necessarily calculated on a reciprocity basis. They were more calculated on a trade deficit basis. That left Israeli officials a little bit wrong-footed and certainly surprised that they got any tariff action at all in this announcement. So Netanyahu and Israeli leaders have made the point to all of the people that they can make the point to, we have already taken action. We're a friend of the United States, and we think that this should pull away. Now, if that happens to be successful, if these tariffs are removed, if they are reduced, if they are delayed, you can imagine every single world leader that has friendly relations with the United States looking at that and taking notes. Certainly, To the other point, though, I do see the European Union and ASEAN both talking about ways that they can maybe work together, be that either all together directly or sort of in some amount of collaboration to try and make their case more en bloc than one by one. But we've seen the administration in Washington say that there has been quite a large amount of reach out trying to get in front of these tariffs. That is not to be, that should not come as a surprise. That certainly makes a lot of sense. And I think around the world, world leaders are trying to figure out what they can offer the U.S., be that moving down trade barriers as India and others have done, or offering other purchases as Australia has suggested, to try and make up the numbers and find a way to convince the U.S. president that they need to be moved down or off the list entirely.
Yes, Derek, but China seems to be going the opposite direction as to what you are suggesting there. They look like they're going to be imposing that 34% tariff on the US from this Thursday. What might this cause more in investor anxiety, and what do you think the impacts might be on the stock markets?
Well, it's a very good question. And look, the idea of trying to find a way to accommodate the U.S. president is certainly one strategy. But the other strategy that we've seen some use is to say, look, we want to have a much more aggressive posture. If you're going to hit us, we're going to hit you right back. You see China doing this. You see some in Europe suggesting that they need to be a lot harder as well. So I think both of those strategies are in play. And again, look, everyone's looking around, everyone's taking notes, everyone's trying to see what may or may not work. And I think that we're going to see a lot of that until we start seeing some things, quote unquote, work, at which point you may see a bit of a herding effect going on. But right now, it's very much a sort of effort to figure out what may be successful, and obviously balancing not just your diplomatic concerns with the United States as a trade partner, but also sort of balancing your domestic priorities at home and what your own population will expect you to do when faced with this circumstance.
Okay, Derek, Wallbank, really good to get your analysis on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.